All right. So this story was hilarious, is hilarious to me. So it's Christmas, mind you, and I'm just relaxing. I'm, figuring everything is done. Nothing's going to happen. There's not going to be any drama. Right. And I'm watching the Warriors and the Lakers game. What a great game that was. And I love that after that game, LeBron James said, NFL, this is our day. Obviously, the NFL is going to get more viewers because the NFL's King Kong in that sense, or King Kong ain't got on the NFL in that sense. I've always said the NFL is the single most popular thing in this country, but the NBA has had a tradition on Christmas Day, and then the NFL just came through and crushed the buildings and decided they were going to take over. But the NBA had better games. I mean, I felt like Beyonce was the big draw for the NFL on Christmas, while the Knicks and the Spurs game was good, and then you had Steph Curry and LeBron head to head in a thriller. But in the midst of watching that game and getting excited as it played out at the end, Steph hit the crazy shot and Reeves winds up winning the game for the Lakers. I'm scrolling and I see, I guess, clips from Hannah Hidalgo from a IG Live. I'm assuming she did it yesterday. These were posted by a UConn fan. And the UConn fan seemed to think, I mean, I say UConn fan because I think the handle was like Azzi Fudd's wife or something like that. And I think the UConn fan thought that everyone was going to gang up on Hannah Hidalgo for what she said on this live about Fudd and the Huskies. And instead, initially that started that way. Like there was backlash from the UConn fan base, but then a bunch of other people got in there and were like, no, we love this energy. We love what she said. So before I continue, let me play you what, it's the internet. So once it's put out there, it lasts forever. Here are the clips from Hidalgo. This was one aspect. And look, this is part of a live stream. I know she also said USC and UConn was a great game, right, in the midst of it. But here was one piece of the stream.
What do I think of Azzi Fudd? I don't think about her. What are you talking about? She's like, what do you think? I don't think.
I just do.
That's because you don't know her. That's all.
I don't just sit and think about players. That's what it is.
So whoever that was off screen sort of noticed that could be read maybe the wrong way, as so dismissive of Azzi Fudd and rude, I guess, if you will. But I appreciate the energy. I do, because it goes with what I've seen from Hidalgo on the floor. She's a killer on the floor. What do people call her? A demon, savage, any of those words. And then there was one other bit that adds to it a little bit. And this one is the one that really sent me when she said this. And this was in response to a comment about the Notre Dame win over UConn earlier this year.
It was no Azzi in that game. Oh, congratulations. Nobody asked.
That is tough, and I think sports can use more of that at times. Look, I mean, could she have said, oh, I'm glad to see Azzi back on the floor. Azzi's a great, seems like a great person, hell of a shooter or whatever. Of course she could have. Of course she could have. And I understand if people feel that way. Like, I get it. At the same time, she didn't say anything completely out of pocket. And it is that kind of, that's like that Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Mamba mentality, whatever, killer instinct that people look for. It's funny because it's almost like hypocritical where everybody's talking about the NBA. I talked about the NBA at the beginning and they're like, it's too buddy nowadays. And then somebody says something like that. And obviously this isn't the NBA, but they get in their feelings. And UConn fans, and obviously I'm not speaking to all UConn fans because that's a huge fan base. So you can't label a huge fan base like that with a broad brush. But the online UConn fans who are constantly, saying stuff seem a little soft. And UConn as a team so far, that's my biggest worry for them, is that they're a little soft as a team. That came to fruition in the USC game. It took them a while to get going. They were getting punked early in that game. And it wasn't until Sarah Strong asserted herself in that game that things changed for the Huskies. And she's the freshman. She shouldn't have to be the one to do that. Now, Azzi Fudd barely played in that game, so that's not fair to her. And she's dealt with a ton of injuries. And hopefully we just see her back healthy on the floor. She seems terrific, right? Like, how could you not like Azzi Fudd? There's nothing to not like about her. And she has tons of talent. So separating that, let's hope she gets back out on the floor and is consistent and helps them win. But when you look at the Huskies overall, that's a question about Paige. right? Like, is Paige aggressive enough? Is Paige assertive enough? Can Paige get her own? Can Paige call her own number? And that keeps coming up in UConn circles. In fact, to the point where either one side is saying, Paige doesn't have that, and the other side is blaming Gino Auriemma for Paige being too passive or sending her mixed messages or not putting the ball in her hands. And that's the sign of a fan base that isn't very confident right now, I would say. And there's not reason for UConn fans to be tremendously confident right now. They go ahead and they blow the doors off Georgetown or some of these other teams, but when they've had the real marquee matchups, they got smashed by Notre Dame and they were getting smashed by USC before they came back in that game. And again, I don't think it was until Sarah Strong asserted herself that they came back in that game. As far as Hidalgo goes, this is part of what makes her unique and is part of her appeal. I mean, you watch her play, you see that energy. You see her getting in the face. You see her competing. You see her screaming. And she gets it done on both ends. And she has that real Hooper energy, which I don't give it about them. I'm focused on me and what I'm doing. And, she hasn't exactly been mentioned with the likes of Paige and Juju, but she went and snatched both their chains in games this year. And I like the response from Juju in the UConn game because Juju had that, you could tell it, you could see it in her eyes in the way she was competing in that game, that she was ready for action, that she wasn't going to back down and she was locked in and was going to make a statement. And that's how she played. And she was either tired or dealing with an injury in the second half. She was not as good in the second half, but she was brilliant in the first half of that game. And you could see how locked in she was. We haven't exactly seen that. Paige did do the stare at the end, so maybe she's getting there. But it does, the energy from UConn does not give off that toughness and that competitiveness and that fire. And that's the energy that Hannah Hidalgo is consistently putting forth. And according to what I saw from the comments and gathered from the comments, I didn't see the stream live. There were a bunch of UConn fans in there spamming her comments. I don't know what she was streaming about or talking about. It was just a bunch of UConn fans going in there. So she probably got annoyed at some point in the process. But I love it, to be honest with you. I can't be mad at it. I get why some people would ruffle feathers a little bit, but that's competitiveness, And more than anything, I just kind of found it hilarious. The person who originally posted it out deleted it, so all the original engagement is gone. But, Hidalgo definitely got some attention for not wanting to talk about Azzi Fudd.